21-year-old Chloe Wisniewski was arrested last week after a pit bull puppy gnawed on the infant's hand while she was in the shower, biting off 5 of her fingers early this year. On the morning of the 14th of February, Chloe left her baby daughter in the same room as a 3-month-old puppy that was brought into a home at 23399 Abrad Avenue in Port Charlotte, Florida less than 24 hours earlier. Chloe told investigators that she was feeling ill and put the little girl in a bassinet before heading to the bathroom. She said she turned on the shower and turned it off again when she heard the baby girl scream. She came running out of the bathroom and saw the dog laying in the bassinet with the child, chewing on the baby's hands. Chloe told police there was so much blood that she couldn't look at her daughter's fingers. She wrapped the baby's hands in cloth and called 911, and the infant was rushed to hospital. Doctors had no choice but to fully amputate 3 fingers on the child's left hand and partially amputate 2 fingers on the right hand. On Friday the 16th of June, after a 4-month investigation, authorities arrested and charged Chloe with child neglect. Investigators said the mother kept changing stories as to why she left the baby alone with the pit bull. She was held at the Charlotte County Jail but was released on Monday the 19th of June after posting a $7,500 bond. As the baby recovers with family members, Chloe was granted supervised visitation. The puppy named Apollo was quarantined as part of the protocol following a bite. He passed the quarantine and was transferred to the Animal Welfare League. 25-year-old Kaylee Ann Louise Bang is behind bars after being accused of setting fire to a home that she knew had people inside. At 5:39 a.m. on the 11th of June, Kaylee set fire to a house at 951 16th Street Northeast in Mason City, Iowa. Authorities said that Kaylee set items on fire in the bedroom when she knew her mother and 2 other people were inside the home. She made no attempt to extinguish the fire and then tried to prevent a neighbour from putting the fire out. Law enforcement described the home as a total loss. On Friday the 16th of June, Kaylee was arrested and booked into the Cerro Gordo County Jail on separate charges of public intoxication and violation of probation. She's now charged with first-degree arson. She's been held on a $25,000 bond. If convicted on the first-degree arson charge, she faces up to 25 years behind bars. A woman has been charged with murder after leaving a 16-month-old daughter alone for more than a week while she vacationed. On the morning of Friday the 16th of June, 31-year-old Crystal Candelario found her daughter Jalen unresponsive at the home on West 97th Street in Cleveland, Ohio, and 911 was called. First responders pronounced Jalen dead at the scene, and investigators noted that she was extremely dehydrated. While questioned, Crystal told detectives that she admitted to going to Puerto Rico and Detroit for a total of 8 days, while leaving Jalen alone and without any care inside the house. Officials also observed Jalen's playpen packed with soil blankets and a bottom liner, saturated with urine and feces. Neighbour Suleim Gonzalez said that the baby's grandmother usually cared for the baby, not the mother. The baby's mother always wanted to go out and left her with her grandmother and all that, she said. Crystal was arrested on Sunday the 18th of June and appeared in court for arraignment on Tuesday the 20th of June. She's held at the Cuyahoga County Jail on a $1 million bond. Her next court appearance is scheduled for a pre-trial hearing on the 28th of June. The investigation into the matter continues. A 24-year-old man is behind bars and is accused of fatally shooting 2 people. At 8:28 p.m. on Monday the 19th of June, authorities responded to a call of a shooting near Main and Bridge Streets in Westbrook, Maine, and saw a man firing at a woman in a parking lot. Officers discovered 37-year-old Brittany Cockrell and 41-year-old Michael Hayter deceased in a vehicle with their 11-year-old son and 7-year-old daughter in the back. The children witnessed the shooting, but police said they were not injured. A man working at a nearby market took the children out of the car so they wouldn't have to see their parents' bodies. The suspect, 24-year-old Marcel LaGrange Jr., ran from the scene and physically assaulted a bystander while fleeing. Authorities identified that victim as 75-year-old Fred Rourke and said he went to hospital with minor injuries. Witnesses nearby tackled Marcel and took his gun away until police arrived and arrested him. The medical examiners determined Michael and Brittany died of gunshot wounds, and their deaths were deemed a homicide. Marcel was charged with 2 counts of murder and is held at the Cumberland County Jail without bond. Investigators said there's no known connection between the victims and Marcel, and the motive of the attack is unclear. Marcel has a criminal history dating back to 2018, with charges of terrorizing, assault, domestic violence and other crimes. Just days prior to the shooting, a woman who met Marcel said he showed up to her house and threatened to kill her. The woman called authorities and pressed charges. She said she quickly realised that Marcel was a very dangerous person and not to have any contact with him. The investigation into the matter continues. 55-year-old Donald Shaver Jr. is behind bars after he tried to kill his pregnant girlfriend with an axe. At 11:28 p.m. on Saturday the 24th of June, authorities responded to a home along Old Cross Road in Bell County, Kentucky on a report of a domestic violence incident. When deputies arrived at the scene, they came in contact with a female victim. She said that Donald placed his hand around her throat, knocking her backward out of a chair, causing the back of her head to hit the ground, and proceeded to strangle her. The woman said she was able to break free from Donald and get to her feet when Donald swung an axe at her stomach while she was 13 weeks pregnant with their child. Deputies found Donald sitting on the back of a pickup truck on the property and detected a strong odour of alcohol coming from his breath. Donald was arrested and charged with assault, strangulation, attempted murder, attempted fetal homicide, and public intoxication. He's out of the Bell County Detention Center. The victim's condition is unknown at this time. 76-year-old Gail DeAnthony is behind bars for fatally beating her 72-year-old husband John DeAnthony early this year. At 7:38 p.m. on the 1st of March, medics responded to a home at 334 Roy Road in Westminster, Maryland on report of a man in cardiac arrest. When medics arrived at the property, they went inside the premises and attempted life-saving measures on John, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner's office determined that John has sustained blunt force trauma all over his body, lacerations to his mouth, a broken neck, rib, 2 black eyes and contusions. His death was ruled a homicide. The Carroll County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit assumed the investigation on the 24th of May and found evidence of blood splatter in the Roy home, consistent with the victim's blunt force trauma injuries. In June, Major Crime Unit detectives became aware that Gail told a witness that she killed John by pushing him to the ground, where he hit his head on the floor. She said that she then left the room and returned with a cane, which she used to bludgeon John on the head, and then used the cane to prevent him from getting up. Gail said she entered and exited the room several times, eventually finding her husband unresponsive before calling 911 for help. Authorities found the witness's statement consistent with the evidence found at the scene. On Wednesday the 21st of June, detectives arrested Gail in Cumberland, Maryland, on charges of first and second degree murder. She remains held without bail at the Allegheny County Jail and will be transported to the Carroll County Detention Center. The motive in the attack is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. 56-year-old Ronald Burdett has pleaded guilty this week to killing his wife last year and shooting his 11-year-old daughter in the neck. Ronald entered the plea on Monday the 26th of June to the charges of murder, assault, and wanton endangerment for fatally shooting his wife Cindy Burdett and seriously wounding his daughter. Ronald also shot at his son, but he wasn't hit. The shooting occurred at 4:50 a.m. on the 15th of May 2022, when Ronald shot Cindy inside their home at 2107 Appleton Lane in Shively, Kentucky. The 11-year-old girl and her twin brother called a relative and told them that Ronald shot their mother and was still opening fire inside the house. Ronald fled after the shooting in a 2007 Ford Taurus, but was arrested the following day in Jeffersonville and then extradited back to Jefferson County. Prosecutors have recommended a sentence of 25 years in prison. His sentencing hearing is scheduled for the 17th of August. A 60-year-old woman was arrested for fatally shooting her boyfriend before taking her own life in jail. At around 12:40 p.m. on Thursday the 22nd of June, authorities were called to a residence in the 3000 block of Appaloosa Drive in Lake Havasu City, Arizona on report of a shooting. The caller, later identified as Julia Pete, told dispatch that she had shot a man in her home. When officers arrived at the scene, they found 69-year-old Mark Corbett, deceased with multiple gunshot wounds. Julia told detectives that she was dating the man and became fearful of her safety after learning of some alleged criminal history involving the man. Upon further investigation, detectives determined that the man had not threatened Julia, nor had he attempted to harm her at the time of the shooting. Julia was arrested and charged with first-degree homicide, and she was booked into the Mojave County Adult Detention Center. On Friday the 23rd of June, her bond was set at $1 million. At 2:34 p.m. on Sunday the 25th of June, Julia was found unresponsive in a cell, with clothing tied around her neck. Officials said she took her own life. Julia was housed alone at the jail, and no foul play is suspected. The investigation into the matter continues. A couple are behind bars in connection with the death of their 8-month-old infant son, who died of an overdose last year. On the morning of the 15th of November, medics responded to a home in the 1600 block of Broadmoor Circle in Boulder City, Nevada, on report of an unresponsive baby. When first responders arrived at the scene, they attempted life-saving measures before transporting the child to St. Rose Sienna Hospital, where the infant was pronounced dead at 9:31 a.m. The Clark County Coroner's Office determined the child died as a result of fentanyl toxicity, and he had suffered recent meth exposure. Police spoke with the child's parents, 36-year-old Jeffrey Terakami and 31-year-old Cara Dugan, who both said the child had been exposed to meth and fentanyl after Jeffrey spilled a bag mixed with the drugs on their bed. The child then allegedly crawled onto the bed following the spill. On the 16th of June, the couple were booked into the Clark County Detention Center, charged with second-degree murder. Their bond has been set at $20,000 each. A 53-year-old man is behind bars after leaving his 5 grandchildren home alone all day without food or air conditioning during a very hot day. At 3:54 a.m. on Monday the 19th of June, authorities performed a welfare check at a home along the 17,400 block of Rolling Creek Drive in Houston, Texas. Investigators said they discovered that Kevin Turner left 5 children, aged between 9 and 16 years old, in the home without food, air conditioning and adult supervision on a day with very high temperatures of over 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Harris County Precinct 4 Constable Mark Herman said, "A couple of them went to a local food store and were caught stealing food inside the store." He said that the children were forbidden from running the air conditioning unless their grandfather was there, and the house was infested with roaches and was just trashy inside, he said. The children were home alone for 24 hours before officials arrived and transported them to a local hospital for treatment. Following medical treatment, Child Protective Services took custody of the children. Authorities said that Kevin is the children's grandfather, but had custody of his daughter's children. During the investigation, Kevin showed up at the house, and deputies took him into custody. He was booked into the Harris County Jail on a charge of child abandonment, and his bond was set at $10,000. Authorities said that further charges are possible as the investigation into the matter continues. Authorities are investigating after a 39-year-old woman was found fatally shot inside her Long Island home on Monday night. At 9:41 p.m. on the 19th of June, authorities responded to apartment number 380 along 117 Hawthorne Avenue in central Islip, New York, after a family member reported finding Shayna Staton unresponsive. Authorities said she was found stuck between a bed and the wall, with several gunshot wounds throughout her body, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. It's not immediately clear what events led up to the shooting. Investigators have not named any suspects or made any arrests as the investigation into the matter continues. 25-year-old Dustin Mason was taken into custody this week in connection to the death of his 5-week-old son who died last year. On the 28th of October, authorities responded to a home at 549 Mustang Lane in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, on a report that an infant had turned blue and was unresponsive. First responders arrived at the residence and performed life-saving measures on the child before transporting him to the hospital. Doctors reported injuries on the baby associated with abusive head trauma. The child was placed on life support but later died. Dustin told investigators that he was home alone with the infant and his 2 other children while his wife was out getting pizza. He said he put the baby in his infant swing and propped his bottle with a blanket while he ran to use the bathroom. While in the restroom, he said he heard choking noises and ran to the infant who was choking on formula. He said he tried to get him to stop choking, but the baby started turning blue. An autopsy was conducted on the 3rd of November, and a report from a pathologist who specialises in child abuse deaths came back in April. It was determined that the infant died as a result of complications due to closed head injuries that occurred over a period of time. These injuries were not consistent with choking on formula, and the child's death was ruled a homicide. On Tuesday the 20th of June, Dustin was arrested and charged with abuse or neglect of a child resulting in death. He's out at the Butler County Jail without bond. 47-year-old Kelly Watford and 52-year-old Mark Watford were arrested last week after their malnourished 6-year-old son drowned inside their home. On Wednesday the 14th of June, authorities responded to a home on the 2,200 block of Core Drive in Auburn, Alabama, where they found a child identified as Sullivan Watford unresponsive and not breathing. Medics performed life-saving measures before transporting the boy to East Alabama Health, where he was pronounced dead. Upon further investigation, police learned of suspicious circumstances surrounding Sullivan's death and collected evidence that signaled to a possible drowning. Investigators said that Sullivan weighed 21 pounds and appeared to be extremely malnourished at the time of his death. Due to his low weight, authorities said it was unlikely Sullivan was able to walk or sit up on his own. Additional evidence was discovered that showed the child had sustained prolonged willful abuse and maltreatment. Kelly told investigators that she gave her son vapor rub to treat his cough, but she never used that kind before. She said she was bathing her son when he became unresponsive, and that he must have died from an allergic reaction, but an autopsy revealed water in his nasal cavity and lungs, which is consistent with drowning. Police took his parents Mark and Kelly into custody. Kelly was charged with felony murder, while Mark was charged with aggravated child abuse. Mark's bond was set at $30,000, and Kelly remains held without bond. At a hearing on Wednesday the 21st of June, Judge Russell Bush saw pictures of the victim taken by Auburn police and said they were nothing like he's ever seen outside the Holocaust documentaries. The parents homeschooled their 7 children, and the victim had never seen a pediatrician. The investigation into the matter continues. 29-year-old Nicole Marie Labour is behind bars and is accused of letting an infant in her care drown in a bathtub and then lying to investigators on how it happened. At around 7:40 AM on Saturday the 17th of June, authorities responded to Nicole's home at 1321 Everglades Boulevard South in Naples, Florida on reports of an unresponsive infant. When first responders arrived, they attempted life-saving measures on the baby, but was later pronounced dead. Nicole told deputies that she briefly left the infant inside the house unattended while she went to retrieve a dog and another child who were in her care after they went outside the front door. When she returned, she said she found the infant slumped over the floor, face down in the dog's water bowl. During the investigation, detectives learned that Nicole left the infant unattended in the bathtub while strapped to a booster seat. The infant drowned after the booster seat tipped over and trapped the child under a few inches of water. Nicole was accused of cleaning up the scene, dressing the child in a diaper and saying the baby drowned in the dog's water bowl. Nicole was arrested and charged with aggravated manslaughter of a child and is held at the Collier County Jail. A man is behind bars for fatally shooting a man inside his home early Wednesday morning. At 12:07 AM on the 21st of June, authorities responded to a residence in the 1600 block of Eastway Drive in Dallas, North Carolina on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived at the scene, they went inside the premises and found 25-year-old Christopher Knox Weary with multiple gunshot wounds. He was transported to the Caramont Regional Medical Center, where he died shortly thereafter. Officers arrested 24-year-old Nicholas Max Talent, who lived at the home in connection to the shooting. Authorities said that Christopher and a friend were at Nicholas's home. When Christopher was ready to go, he called his mother to pick him up. Sometime after that call, Nicholas fired 6 shots through his bedroom door. 3 of those shots fatally struck Christopher. The motive in the shooting is unclear. Nicholas is charged with second-degree murder and was being held at the Gaston County Jail, but was released after posting a $500,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 28-year-old Tiana Johnson has been charged in connection to the death of a toddler early this year. At 7:15 AM on the 22nd of January, authorities responded to an apartment in the 700 block of Blue Street in Fayetteville, North Carolina, on reports of an unresponsive child. First responders entered the residence and attempted life-saving measures on the girl. However, the child was pronounced dead at the scene and her death was ruled a homicide. Authorities have not disclosed the events leading up to the girl's death. Police said that the child and Tiana were related, but did not specify their exact relationship. However, police said that Tiana lived in the same apartment complex. On Friday the 23rd of June, Tiana was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and felony child abuse and is held at the Cumberland County Detention Center. A couple were arrested on Friday the 23rd of June in connection to the death of their infant daughter last month. At 5:12 PM on the 31st of May, deputies responded to a home located near Interstate 75 and Bee Ridge Road in Sarasota County, Florida, in reference to the death of an 8-month-old child. The child had been found unresponsive and cold to touch and was transported to the doctor's hospital by the child's father, Nicholas Alexander, and a friend who drove him there. Deputies determined that the child had been in the care of Carissa Alexander, the child's mother, when the child was observed face down on the couch cushions inside the residence. Further investigation determined that the child had not been checked on from 10:30 AM to approximately 4:45 PM, when Nicholas returned home from work later that day. The child had been dead for several hours, and it was confirmed that the child died from exposure to fentanyl. Nicholas and Chris were each charged with aggravated manslaughter of the child, and are being held without bond at the Sarasota Correctional Facility. A man is behind bars after using a drone to spy on a woman while she was preparing to take a shower. At around 11 PM on Wednesday the 21st of June, authorities responded to a home along Midland Drive in Cranston, Rhode Island, where a woman reported a drone peering into a bathroom window. She said she had just returned home from work and was preparing to use the shower. Her bathroom window was slightly ajar, and she said she heard a buzzing noise and went out to her backyard, thinking it had something to do with her pool. Once outside, she noticed the drone hovering outside her bathroom window. When she approached the drone, it quickly moved away from her, hit a tree branch and crashed to the ground. She grabbed the drone and submerged it into her pool to disable it, and handed it over to police. Investigators later tracked the drone to Christopher Jones, a convicted sex offender. He has not had to register since his requirement ended in 2015. Christopher admitted he operated the drone. On Friday the 23rd of June, Christopher was arrested and charged with video voyeurism. 3 police officers have been charged with murder after fatally shooting a woman inside her apartment during a mental health crisis. In the very early morning hours of Friday the 23rd of June, authorities responded to an apartment complex in the 6200 block of Old Pearsall Road in San Antonio, Texas on reports of a disturbance and vandalism. Investigators said that a woman identified as 46-year-old Melissa Perez was behaving erratically, destroying things in her apartment and cutting through wires of a fire alarm system of the apartment complex. When officers arrived, they located Melissa in the parking lot and tried to talk to her, but she ran back to her apartment and locked herself in. She then reached for a glass candle and threw it at the officers. One group of officers was at the front of the apartment, and 3 officers were stationed at the back patio of the apartment, identified as Alfred Flores, Eleazar Alejandro, and Nathaniel Villalobos. The 3 officers tried to coax Melissa out of the apartment, but she refused. Soon after, 2 of the officers jumped the railings and got onto the patio. Melissa then picked up a hammer, then swung the hammer from inside the apartment towards the officers and hit the window, breaking it. One of the officers fired his weapon at Melissa, but it didn't appear that she was struck. Melissa went toward the window again, while still armed with the hammer, and all 3 officers opened fire, and she was struck by gunfire at least 2 times. After the shooting, officers forced their way into the apartment and provided medical aid until medics arrived. Melissa died at the scene from her injuries. After reviewing body cam footage, the 3 officers were taken into custody late Friday and charged with murder. Their bonds were set at $100,000 each. San Antonio Police Chief William McManus said that the shooting officers' actions were not consistent with San Antonio Police Department policy and training. They placed themselves in a situation where they used deadly force, which was not reasonable given all the circumstances, he said. The officers were all released the following morning after posting bond pending trial. The investigation into the matter continues. Authorities are investigating after a man was found fatally shot early Saturday morning. At around 4 AM on the 24th of June, police responded to Cordell Circle in Jacksonville, North Carolina, on reports of a person down. When officers arrived, they located a man laying on the roadway between Waffle House and Goodfellas Bar and Lounge, in a critical condition, suffering from a gunshot wound. Medics arrived and attempted life-saving measures and transported him to a local hospital, where he later succumbed to his injuries. The victim was identified as 44-year-old Andre Markel Lewis, and his death was ruled a homicide. Investigators believe that this was an isolated incident. Police have not released a motive or made any arrests in the case, as the investigation into the matter continues. A teenager is behind bars and is accused of fatally stabbing a man over the weekend. At around 7:30 AM on Sunday the 25th of June, authorities responded to a home along the 900 block of Summer Breeze Drive in Brandon, Florida, and found a man inside a residence with upper body trauma. The victim was transported to Brandon Regional Hospital, where he later died. Officers located 17-year-old Caleb Beck near the scene, who was identified as a suspect. Authorities said that Caleb admitted to stabbing the unidentified victim during a heated argument. However, it's unclear what the argument was about. Caleb was arrested and charged with murder in the second degree with a weapon, and is held at the Hillsborough County Jail. The investigation into the matter continues. 28-year-old Crystal Vera is behind bars after abandoning her malnourished 8-year-old son at their home early this month. Crystal left her son by himself while she left to hang out with her boyfriend. On the 8th of June, the boy broke into a nearby stranger's house located along Petrus Road in Harlingen, Texas to steal food. The Cameron County Sheriff's Office was notified about the child after the homeowners found the boy digging through their refrigerator and eating their food. The homeowners said he was holding food in his hands and said that he was hungry. The homeowners said they did not know the boy. Police said the young boy was observed to be skinny, seemed very weak and malnourished. The homeowners took the boy back to his home in an attempt to return him to his mother, but she was not home. After some time, the mother arrived back at her residence with her boyfriend, and she admitted to police that she left the boy unattended and home alone. The boy has since been removed from the home by Child Protective Services. On the 20th of June, after gathering enough evidence, Crystal was arrested and charged with abandonment and endangerment of a child with imminent bodily injury. She's held at the Cameron County Jail on a $20,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. A 32-year-old man is behind bars after fatally stabbing the mother of his children over the weekend. At around 3 p.m. on Sunday the 25th of June, authorities responded to an apartment at 16 Natividad Road in Salinas, California on report of a stabbing. When officers arrived, they went inside the residence and found 30-year-old Eleni Tavu unresponsive with multiple stab wounds. 2 of her children, a 1-year-old girl and a 2-year-old boy, were found nearby. Officers attempted life-saving measures on Eleni before transporting her to a hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Investigators interviewed witnesses, followed up on leads, and discovered that Eleni had a restraining order against Rodrigo Bravo, the father of Eleni's young children. At around 5:30 p.m, Rodrigo turned himself in at the Salinas Police Department and confessed to the killing. Eleni's younger brother Alex Carr said they spoke on the phone just prior to the stabbing, and she told him that she was done with Rodrigo. She said that she wanted to move to Reno, Nevada to be with him and to bring her kids there. Rodrigo is charged with murder, violation of probation, and violation of a domestic violence restraining order. He is also charged with child endangerment because the toddlers were at home with their mother when she was slain. He's held at the Monterey County Jail with his bond set at $1 million. Eleni's family says she leaves behind 3 children. The investigation into the matter continues. "19-year-old Ashley Marie Barnes is behind bars for beating family members, which included her mother and 11-year-old girl. At just after 8 p.m. on Saturday the 17th of June, authorities responded to a home off West 32nd Street in Muncie, Indiana on reports of a domestic battery incident. Police said that 11-year-old girl and other witnesses told officers that Ashley had slapped her in the face, punched her body and put both hands around her neck. Investigators noted that the girl had marks on her neck and face, and she was taken to a local hospital for treatment. Ashley's mother told investigators that when she tried to separate Ashley and the 11-year-old girl, she had her hair pulled, she was pushed, and she was hit in the back of the head. Officers took pictures of the mother's wounds to document her injuries. Officers also observed she had scrapes on her legs and her fingers were bleeding. Another family member also said Ashley struck him in the face while he tried to stop her violent altercation, but stated he didn't want charges filed. There were several children present in the home during the fight with Ashley along with the 11-year-old girl. They included a 12-year-old girl and 4 boys aged 17, 10, 9 and 7 years old. Ashley was arrested and charged with battery resulting in bodily injury and strangulation, and she was booked into the Delaware County Jail. The investigation into the matter continues. 45-year-old Loretta K. Carr was arrested on Sunday the 25th of June and charged with capital murder and kidnapping in connection with the death of 37-year-old Mary Elizabeth Isbell of Fort Payne, Alabama. Loretta is accused of intentionally causing Mary's death by pushing her off of a cliff in October of 2021 after an attempted abduction or during an abduction. Mary had been reported missing by the Hartselle Police Department and the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office in January of 2022, saying she had family in Hartselle, but was also known to live in DeKalb County. Prior to her disappearance, she was allegedly involved in some sort of theft in an apartment she lived in with her boyfriend, identified as James Allen Wright. James eventually transferred to a rehabilitation center in Florida, while Mary began living where she could in DeKalb County, Alabama. Namath, The Missing Persons organisation said that Mary moved out of her Fort Payne residence on the 11th of October 2021 and hadn't been seen since. Authorities said she was driving a dark-coloured Jeep. Police have not elaborated on Loretta's possible motive or how the two women knew each other, and have released few details on the case. Loretta remains held at the DeKalb County Jail without bond as the investigation into the matter continues. 64-year-old Charles Ray Johnson is behind bars after fatally shooting his next-door neighbours 44-year-old Curtis Ray Dickey Jr. and 46-year-old Kelly Nicole Adams. At 10:01 p.m. on Wednesday the 21st of June, authorities received multiple calls of a shooting outside an apartment complex along the 1800 block of Potomac Place in College Station, Texas. One of the calls came from Charles himself, who told dispatch that he shot two people from his front porch. Upon arriving at the scene, police said that Charles was found in the parking lot and he was taken into custody after telling police he had no choice but to shoot, and it was done in self-defense. Curtis was found deceased on the front porch, and Kelly was found deceased at the threshold of their apartment. After being taken into custody, Charles admitted to shooting both Curtis and Kelly following a verbal altercation regarding the tampering of Charles's moped. Charles explained that there had been ongoing harassment issues between himself, Curtis and Kelly. Charles told police that after arriving at his apartment, Curtis and Kelly began banging on his door. Charles said he grabbed his gun and went outside to confront them. Authorities said that a witness saw Charles exiting his apartment and yelling at Curtis and accusing him of tampering with his moped. A witness said that Curtis denied the allegations, at which point Charles opened fire on Curtis and then shot Kelly as she attempted to run back to her apartment. Charles is charged with 2 counts of murder and is held at the Brazos County Detention Center on an $800,000 bond. A 51-year-old man was arrested last week for kidnapping a woman, holding her captive in a trailer, and sexually assaulting her over several days in May. On Tuesday the 13th of June, authorities arrested Christopher Lee Ward at his residence along the 500 block of New Center Road in Hartselle, Alabama for first-degree kidnapping and second-degree assault, and additional charges are possible. A woman needed Christopher to take her to an appointment, and he drove her back to his trailer afterward and locked her in. Christopher told her that she ruined his day, then hit her several times, injuring her. He then used a padlock to keep her in the trailer and refused to let her leave. He reportedly sexually assaulted the victim as well. The victim told police that on the second night of captivity, Christopher had taken a shot of dope which in turn made him paranoid. The woman told police that Christopher punched her, kicked her, kneed her in the ribs, choked her, and beat her severely. Christopher said he'll kill her before he went to prison for this. The victim eventually managed to escape when she and Christopher got into his car, but then he stopped to say hi to someone he knew. She said she got out of the car and ran to safety, where she asked someone to call 911 for her. Christopher is currently being held at the Morgan County Jail without bond. A 58-year-old man is behind bars after fatally shooting his neighbour earlier this week. At just before 11 p.m. on Tuesday the 20th of June, authorities were called to a home along Chain Street in Sumter, South Carolina regarding a man laying unresponsive in the front yard of a residence. When officers arrived, they found 46-year-old Levin Wilson deceased from gunshot wounds. Upon further investigation, police identified George Gregory Anderson as a suspect. Authorities said it remains unclear what led to the shooting. It's reported that the men were not acquainted, and there was no indication of a dispute before the incident. George is held at the Sumter County Detention Center on charges of murder and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. George was also served with an outstanding bench warrant unrelated to the case. The investigation into the matter continues. 26-year-old Hunter Tatum will avoid the death penalty after he pleaded guilty to fatally shooting his wife Summer Tatum and the couple's unborn son during his capital murder trial. On Wednesday the 21st of June, Hunter entered a plea arrangement for 2 counts of murder, and a judge sentenced him to 198 years in prison. At just before midnight on the 18th of October 2021, Hunter shot Summer, who was 5 months pregnant, at their home on Sunset Court in Prattville, Alabama. Prosecutors argued that Hunter killed Summer because she was angry that he had developed an online relationship with a woman in England. Hunter's defense team alleged Summer threatened Hunter with a gun and told him, "You don't deserve to live, and I'm going to kill you." Security camera footage, however, captured Summer pleading with Hunter outside their home. "Please, please, please, I'll stay. I'll do anything. Don't kill me." Hunter said nope several times before shooting his wife twice in the back of the head with a revolver. Medics rushed an unresponsive Summer to Montgomery Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Doctors delivered baby Everett via emergency C-section, and he survived for about 2 hours before dying. Prosecutors sought the death penalty, but Summer's family approved of the plea deal. In his statement, District Attorney C.J. Robinson said the case took a toll on all of us. A 23-year-old man is behind bars after fatally shooting a 23-year-old man and injuring his 21-year-old estranged girlfriend over the weekend. On Saturday the 24th of June, authorities responded to a residence along State Road 100 Keystone Heights, Florida, on reports of a shooting. When Clay County deputies arrived at the scene, they found a male victim unresponsive in the driveway, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Medics attempted life-saving measures on the man, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators also located a female victim with a gunshot wound and transported her to a local hospital to treat her injuries. The female victim identified the shooter as her estranged boyfriend John Thornton, but he fled the scene before deputies arrived. The Clay County Sheriff's Office notified law enforcement agencies about the suspect's vehicle, and officials from the Bradford County Sheriff's Department later located John's car and took him into custody. Investigators said the two victims would occasionally allow John to stay in their home. He and the female victim were reportedly estranged because of domestic violence. Authorities said that on the day of the shooting, John arrived uninvited, and the two victims ordered him to leave. When John tried to enter the home again, he allegedly pulled out a gun and shot his estranged girlfriend and the male victim. John was booked into the Clay County Jail on charges of second-degree murder and second-degree attempted murder. He remains held without bond and is scheduled to appear in court on the 24th of July. Sheriff Michelle Cook said the victims were trying to help a friend, and sadly became the target of the suspect. The investigation into the matter continues. A 26-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting his newborn daughter with a crossbow and injuring his 31-year-old wife. At 5:14 a.m. on Monday the 26th of June, authorities responded to a residence along State Route 41 near Cass Road in Colesville, New York on report of an adult female and an infant who had been shot with a crossbow. When medics arrived, they pronounced the infant dead at the scene, while the woman was transported to hospital. Investigators learned that Patrick Daniel Profeed got into a dispute with his wife and fired a crossbow at her while she was holding their 3-week-old daughter. The crossbow reportedly struck the infant in the torso, exiting near the armpit and then hit the woman in the chest. Authorities said that Patrick removed the arrow and tried to stop his wife from calling law enforcement. He then fled the home in his 2016 Dodge Ram pickup truck before deputies arrived at the scene. Deputies from the Broome County Sheriff's Office created a perimeter in the area and began searching for Patrick with the assistance of the New York State Police and the Chenango County Sheriff's Office. Investigators located Patrick less than a mile away from his home in a wooded area after his vehicle got stuck in the mud. Deputies arrested Patrick and charged him with second-degree murder, second-degree attempted murder, and first-degree criminal contempt. He's been held at the Broome County Jail without bail. Authorities said that Patrick has an active stay-away order of protection and a long history of domestic violence. Broome County Sheriff Fred Aksher called the case one of the most heartbreaking and senseless crimes. He said having a newborn child should be the greatest thing in life. It should not push you to commit homicide, and that's exactly what Patrick did. The woman's condition is currently unclear as the investigation into the matter continues. At 3:45 a.m. on Monday the 26th of June, authorities arrested 39-year-old Jamie Schnackenberg at his home along School Street in Monticello, Maine for the murder of his living girlfriend, 42-year-old Kimberly Hardy. Kimberly was reported missing on Sunday the 18th of June by her mother after she had not seen or heard from her daughter since Friday the 16th of June, and an extensive search for her began. Authorities said that Kimberly was undergoing cancer treatments, which was supposed to be ongoing. The search for Kimberly led investigators to a wooded area around Harvey Siding Road, where a body believed to be that of Kimberly was found. The chief medical examiner in Augusta will confirm the victim's identity and cause of death. Kimberly and Jamie have been in a relationship since February of 2022. Jamie remains held at the Aroostook County Jail as the investigation into the matter continues. Police have arrested 19-year-old Enrique Padilla for fatally shooting 52-year-old Michael Tenorio in a movie theatre after getting into a fight over reserved seats. At around 9 p.m. on Sunday the 25th of June, authorities responded to multiple reports of shots fired at the Century Rio movie theatre on Pan America Freeway in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Enrique and Michael were at the theatre seeing no hard feelings. Michael and his wife were reportedly sitting in the seats that Enrique and his girlfriend reserved. Enrique confronted Michael, and a theatre employee tried to break it up. Enrique then threw a bucket of popcorn at the couple. Michael and Enrique then started fighting. Authorities said that Enrique fired several shots, struck Michael and fled the scene. An off-duty officer who was at the theatre during the shooting performed CPR on Michael, however he died at the scene. Police found Enrique hiding in the bush near the theatre's emergency exit, and he was taken to University New Mexico Hospital and treated for a gunshot wound to his stomach. When Enrique was questioned, he said he was shot inside the movie theatre, but he was unsure who shot him. Witnesses in the theatre said they saw a green laser prior to the shooting, and police later discovered a gun with a laser in the bushes where Enrique emerged from. Enrique has been arrested and charged with open murder, shooting at a dwelling or occupied building, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and tampering with evidence. The investigation into the matter continues. 32-year-old Austin Green Urick is behind bars for fatally beating his mother. At 7:26 p.m. on Thursday the 22nd of June, authorities responded to the Hacienda apartment complex in the 1300 block of Northeast 68th Avenue in Portland, Oregon, on a report of an assault. When officers arrived at the scene, they entered the apartment and located 64-year-old Kathy Green with serious life-threatening injuries, and she was transported to a local hospital for treatment. Investigators identified the victim's son as the suspect, who remained on scene and cooperated with officers. He told authorities that he hit his mother in the head with a baseball bat, stating that he was tired of the way his mother treated him, and so he struck her. He was booked into the Multnomah County Detention Center on charges of attempted murder, domestic violence and unlawful use of a weapon. Kathy died from her injuries 2 days later in hospital. Following her death, Austin's attempted murder charge was upgraded to murder. The investigation into the matter continues. 35-year-old Jessica Deidre Edward Ricks is accused of attempting to drown a 2-year-old daughter in a bathtub. The mother of 4 is also accused of stabbing the toddler as well as a 4-year-old son and forcing them to ingest toxic cleaning liquid. At around 10:30 p.m. on Saturday the 24th of June, authorities responded to a 911 call at her home along Blue Stem Court in Albion, Michigan, after Jessica's 15-year-old daughter could be heard screaming for help. When officers arrived, they entered the home and heard a commotion coming from behind a locked door to the bathroom. An officer kicked the door open and found Jessica hunched over a bathtub, holding her 2-year-old daughter who had a stab wound to her chest and throat underwater. The officer quickly grabbed the girl from the woman and took her into the living room and began CPR. After giving a few quick breaths, her child coughed up water and began breathing on her own. Her 4-year-old brother also had multiple slash wounds. Police said that the 4-year-old boy and the 2-year-old girl were also believed to have swallowed cleaner fluid, and both were transported to a local hospital. They were later airlifted to a children's hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan for more specialized care, and both are recovering. 2 other children ages 8 and 15 were also found in the house. Neither appeared to have suffered any injuries. Jessica was taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of assault with intent to murder, 4 counts of child abuse and 1 count of simple assault. She's been held in the Calhoun County Correctional Facility on a $500,000 bond. Jessica appeared in court on Tuesday the 27th of June and pleaded not guilty to the charges. She's been ordered to undergo a mental health assessment and is due to return to court on the 11th of July. If convicted of the charges, Jessica faces up to life in prison. The investigation into the matter continues. On Wednesday the 28th of June, 37-year-old Carlton Dudley was arrested just days after his wife's body was found at a lake. Carlton has been charged with abuse of a corpse in connection with his wife's death. 32-year-old Sarah Dudley was reported missing on Saturday the 24th of June, but her body was found 2 days later along the shore of Lake Louisville, near a camping area by visitors to Hidden Cove Park in Frisco, Texas. Carlton told police he spent time with his wife early Saturday afternoon and then left to go to a friend's house to take care of a cat. When he returned at around 4 p.m, he said his wife was gone and assumed that she had gone to work in Plano, Texas, roughly 15 miles away from Hidden Cove Park. He told investigators he took his kayak to Hidden Cove on Louisville Lake, but couldn't inflate it. Police said that he told him that he couldn't get his kayak to blow up. It's a soft kayak, so he just stayed at the marina for a while and walked around. After Sarah's body was found, investigators learnt that the husband was required to wear an ankle monitor as part of bond conditions for an aggravated sexual assault case against a child in Frisco, Texas in September of 2022. When detectives looked at the data from his monitor, they found that he was not just on the shore, but he was out on the water somewhere. Investigators gathered enough evidence to arrest him on abuse of a corpse charge. Authorities said that more charges are possible after an autopsy is completed. Carlton and Sarah lived in an apartment in Plano, Texas, and have reportedly been together for 10 years. Carlton is being held at the Collin County Jail on a $560,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues.